brief. We'll just have a quick look at it. So it's the third and last brief on the Moodle. So it's this one. So it's a web banner that you'll be making. And you can go back, there's, in the Moodle, there's instructions on what size the document's going to be. So if you follow along, I'll do a demo to sort of give you a run through of the process, but just be aware that you do have things that sort of already been put here with, so if you forget one of these steps, you'll be able to go back through these. So you can see there's some imagery and some instructions on how to make your web banner. Oh, I thought it was a horizontal one. Oh, we're doing a vertical one. Okay. My bad. So it's a skinny, long one. That's unusual. All right, whatever. Yeah, and then the last week there's a quiz. So we've still got a little bit of time to work on this. So let's just go and have a look at the actual brief, what it asks you to do. So we're doing the same project. So obviously it's for the same client. So it's the gelato bar again. And this time you've been asked to do an animated GIF to go as an ad on a website. So it'll appear on the Florida Hotel website homepage. So the banner has to include similar photographic and vectographic elements to your poster as it's part of the same campaign. So once you've made your poster, and like I know some of you haven't finished it yet, that's fine, but I want you thinking about this. We can use the same photographic background, the same vectors, but just move them around a bit. And you know, you should have some kind of a signature image. So whatever's on the background of the poster should be the background on the web banner. So they don't have to be exactly the same, but they should have a similar feel across both designs so they appear related. So there's two options for a headline. You just choose one. And there's written content you have to add in. So here is the banner size. Oh, it's funny. Yeah, it is landscape. I don't know, the examples in the screenshots that are in there look vertical, but that's the way I would have done a banner. Landscape, so that's what I'll show you, even though the screenshots in the, I might replace them. I think they're kind of wrong. It's going to be an RGB animated GIF. These are the headlines. So that type you can actually add into Photoshop using Photoshop type tool, because we're now going to be working in pixels. So just pick one of those to use, and it's got to have that little call out, 10% discount for hotel guests, grand opening, you've got to have these things, and you've got to have the gelato bar logo and the date, right? So you've still got to have all that stuff in there. And you still got to have the opening time, so it's very similar to what's on the poster, and you've got to include that in the web banner. So the brief asks you to, just go through, you've been briefed, what do you need to create, what other things do you think you need to think about to meet the requirements? Any clues there? What do you got to think about? You're translating a poster to a web banner.
Well, you need your poster the original one already made.
Is not landscape, is it? You know, so you've got the problem that you've got to translate something that's vertical to a horizontal web banner. So that's a challenge. Obviously, the images that we're making for the poster are print. So they're high resolution, 300 pixels per inch. That's not what you use for web. Web has to be 72 pixels per inch. So the other requirement is thinking about the resolution of the images and learning how to change them. Okay, so if you can think of any other things that you think might come into play for that. One of the main things they're asking for is that they want it to be consistent, to match the poster. So that means you don't want to introduce some other graphics that don't match what you did on the poster. So using the exact same material you use for the poster is great. Doesn't mean you can't change it in some way, or maybe just use a section of it instead of the whole thing. So that's what you've got to think about. Which bits will I use? Maybe I can't adapt everything from the background image because it won't fit, because one's portrait, the other's horizontal. So there'll be some changes. So here we'll look at a few ideas. I'll show you a couple of finished ones, and then after I've been through the process, I'll get you to sketch out what you think the web banner could look like. When it's an animated GIF, what you want to visualise here is the finished kind of screen. So things are going to come on, maybe one at a time, things will move, but what does the final image look like when it stops animating? Because that's when you kind of need to have everything on there. So we'll look at some examples. So we're going to go through these steps, and as you do them, you can start putting your examples into here. The colours, we're going to look at the actual hex code and what those colours are made of, because the style guide gives you a lot of this information. So if I open up the style guide that you were given in resources, it's actually got some of the information you need. Sorry, I've just got to find my ice cream project. Okay, so if you go to the Moodle, make sure you've got that style guide. It's in this folder, resources. Download the Ciao Bella brand PDF. So go and download that if you haven't already. You'll need it for the print poster anyway. And for the print poster, you've got the CMYK EPS, and one of them is reversed. So you'll need these two for the print poster, right? So make sure you've got those. You should be able to use them as is. But have a look at the brand guide. I'm just going to open it now. Oh, where did it go? Where did it go? I should download them again. Ciao Bella, where's it going? It's going to my down. Don't know why it's not showing up. Don't add it. Oh. Should turn up in the downloads folder. God, why is that not showing up when I download it? That's weird. I'll just do it. Do it one more time. Maybe I'll send it somewhere else. Send it to the desktop. It's being weird. I don't know if my download's not working or what. Okay, that's weird. There it is. Okay, so download and open the Ciao Bella style guide, but open it in Adobe Illustrator. So the first thing we're going to learn to do is to export assets for web. So make sure you've everybody got this? Okay. Are we all listening? Do it with me. It's easier to do it with you because you're going to need this stuff. So obviously this is print ready, right? You could use this for a print. You could just copy and paste it onto your Illustrator file, no problem. But we need to prepare it for the web. And notice on our style guide we do have the information we need for if we want to use these colours, which are the brand colours. Doesn't mean you can't use other colours, but when it asks for the hex code, you can see it's already got it there and it's got the RGB values. So you'll be able to answer the questions in the brief by looking there. And if you introduce any other colours, that's fine. You may want some other colours to use in it apart from the brand ones. You also write down the hex code and I'll show you where we do that. So at the moment we have something we can't use for the website. So we have to export it for web using the assets export. It's a particular thing, it's very handy. Window asset export, it's a different way of exporting things than PDFs. So go to that asset export and just drag your logo on there. Now notice what it's done, which I'm quite happy it's done because I want these things separate because I want to be able to animate the logo on separately. But when I want the whole thing to stay locked together in its proper logo appearance, you'll have to group it. And this is the same with any logo you want to export. Otherwise, when you drag it in, it will split into its different bits like that. So just drag it on there. It looks like it's dragging off the page, but it's not. And now you can see I've got one that's the whole logo. So do it both ways. Drag it in without being grouped and you'll see it'll split into its components, and then group it and drag one in like that. The next step, once you've done that, so did everybody find it? Yeah, that's the window asset export. That's where you've got to go find that. And once you've dragged them in, you can then pick them and you can choose what format. I was showing you this morning, this is also where you can do an OBJ. But for the web, you're usually going to be using PNGs or JPEGs, one or the other. PNGs tend to be good for more detail. If you've got a really detailed vector drawing, they're good. The other format that works in web is SVG, and that's also good for vector. But we're just going to do these as little PNGs. And notice you can export them as PDFs as well.
Wait,
So,
how did you get yours together?
that's what I'm saying, you've got to group it. So you've got to drag over them all and then go Object, Group. I've ungrouped them now. I'll ungroup them.
Mine is grouped.
Yeah, you've got to make sure it is grouped. Drag over it, Object, Group. And then when you drag in, it should be coming as one. Is it working now? Yeah. So I would make a few of these. So you've got the individual bits to play with if you want to, but you've also got the whole thing if you want to use it like that. So pick the bits you want to export. PNG is fine. You can add scale, but probably 1x is enough. And then you just hit export. Now this is where your folder system's really important. So go and find your folder system that you made. Now mine's sitting on documents, and make sure you've got a web folder to put them into. So if you haven't, go new folder and choose that folder and start saving the assets for web, because we're going to put our background image in there as well. At the moment, we're not really making the web banner, we're just preparing the things we need to make it. So choose that. If you miss a step, I will go back over it, but I am recording this and I'll put this recording on the Moodle as well. So choose that folder and, pick each different one. I'm going to make sure I have the whole thing as well. Just going to export it. Make sure it's all going into my web folder so that I've got these things as individual things as well. So just do that for the vector. Then when you're ready, we're going to look at how to get the Photoshop stuff that's very large Now if you've got vector elements like a decorative thing you've traced, that's where you might have to think about just using part of it, depending on the design idea you come up with. Oh, this is my drink. I might have to go and get a drink. Okay, so has everybody managed to do that bit? You all managed that? Okay. So now we're going to look at the Photoshop file. So open Photoshop, and if you did what I asked you to do last week, you should have a folder which has your raw images in it. Or it might be that you've already got one you've put together as a composition that's layered and you want to bring that in. So say I've got this, let's have a look at that. Say I wanted to use that, background, I could. In this case, I think I'm just going to go for the original image that I put in the raw folder, which is this one, which has got a nice tropical. So make sure you've opened your background image. It should be the background image that you're using on your poster, right? The main image you were working with last week. Even if you haven't finished playing with it in Photoshop, that's fine. I'm just going to walk through the process now so you know what to do, and then you can draw up some ideas. Okay, so the problem with this, is that it's a print image. So if we go to image size, that's under the image menu, we'll see that even though it's at 72, it's very large, centimetres. It's 3,000, if I look up here at pixels, it's 3,000 pixels. That is enormous. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep resample on. We're going to change the measurement to pixels so we can look at that. And then we're going to look at what the brief asked us to do. So go back up here to the size, where it said size, blah, 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 blah. And that's the measurement we want to do. So 19020. Now, the easiest way to do this, like we could spend time with this, but it's not going to help us because this is the wrong format, isn't it? Right? We want a horizontal slice of this vertical image. So I've had a look at what I've got, and I've got 3,000 pixels there, so it's really massive. So the easiest way, the way I do this, is I use the crop tool. And I'm going to input the exact dimensions I want using the crop tool. So go and find the crop tool. As soon as you find it, you'll need to switch it to this width and height and resolution. So when you do that, has everybody found that? Mm-hmm. When you do that, now you can plug in the exact measurements from the brief. And you can also put in the 72. Now what that does is it creates a crop window, which is the exact dimensions of the final website. So then you can just position the image, what slice do you want to have? So it's not going to be the same as your poster image, it's going to be part of it that you think helps it relate to the print image. So that's up to you. I could pick just the sand. It would still work. The sand and the huts would still look good. So that could be my image. So when you get to this point, fiddle around with it. Make sure it's the width, height, resolution that's going to match the web page that you're going to make. Did you all manage that? So it's up here. You've got it'll probably say ratio, and you've got to switch it to width, height, and resolution, and then plug in what it said on the brief. So you've got to put those measurements in, and then make sure the resolution is 72. And then when you say done, and you just fiddle around with it till you're really happy with the slice You know, you might slice it a couple of times. You know, maybe I want to have a couple of images to play with. So from the one image, you could experiment with getting some different slices to try out on your web banner. But when you get to the point where you're happy with it, just say done. No, I wasn't quite accurate with that. I'll try it again. My slice was a little bit not to the edges. Oops. I'll just do it a little bit more carefully. So there's my bit that I'm slicing. Choose the bit you want and then make sure it's lined up. Hit done, or the little tick up here, and then save that. File, save as, and make sure it's either a JPEG or a PNG. JPEG's fine. And make sure you're saving it into the correct folder. So it's going in to your web images folder. So you're learning to organise yourself with print files and web files separately. So I've already got one in there, so I'm just going to resave that. Then the next step is to make a blank canvas for yourself where you're going to place the image. We could work on this if this is the right size, but maybe you don't want the image already on there. Maybe you want a blank colour. So to make a new web banner, again you hit new and you're going to choose the web option. And you're going to use those, you're going to make sure it's measuring in pixels. And it's 1920, isn't it? And 768, I think that's correct. And 72, and guess what? It's RGB colour by default, and so it should be.
300 DPI.
Yeah, and then it should be 72 by default, and then that's it. Now you can start putting your imagery in there. Place embedded, and you can start to go and find your bits and pieces. If I've done my image right, it should just pop straight in. It's exact size I want. So place embedded and go and find the bits and pieces. So remember I chopped out some ice cream last time, so I've got my ice cream thing. So you just start putting in everything that you need. But you guys are going to make a sketch in a minute for this. So that's my edited ice cream. And then I have the assets. So I've got the Ciao Bello logo separately. Or I can place the whole thing. So that's the process. I'm going to stop there and just make sure everybody's been able to prepare these assets. And then we're going to have a look at some examples of what the animation might look like. So there's a little bit of preparation before you jump ahead into showing them. So I might just show you an example of a student's finished one from last time, and then I'll stop. Do I have a Ciao Bello?
I'm sorry, Jenny. So in the resolution, it says 300 dpi for the banner.
That's wrong.
Is that wrong?
It can't be 300. It's a web banner.
Yeah. I mean, so should they have it?
Yeah, where does it say that? That's just weird.
Homepage banner size.
Oh! Well, that's print. That's no good. You can't put that on the website. That's a mistake. That should say 72 if you'd like to go and correct that. It's just wrong. Yeah, so when you're preparing for a website, it's got to be the 72. It can't be 300. That's a print image. It'll be enormous on the web page. Okay, so that's a typical home banner page. And you notice that when we started to make the web banner, So sorry about that, I didn't write that, so it's just a mistake. You'll notice that when you start to make the web banner, it automatically comes up as 72, because that is a web resolution. Yeah, sorry, it's just a mistake on the brief.
How did you get yours?
I'm just going to stop recording now.